The silence came first. That's what nobody tells you about when something truly unidentified falls from the sky. I'm Master Sergeant Jake Cordova, 24th Special Tactics Squadron, and what I'm about to tell you happened 17 miles northwest of Groom Lake, Nevada, on March 14th, 2003, just days after the invasion of Iraq kicked off, when every eye in the intelligence community was focused on the Middle East and nobody was watching the desert back home. My 7-man team was extracted from pre-deployment at Nellis AFB at 0347 hours, with orders so classified they weren't written down. Proceed to coordinates in the restricted range, secure a downed asset, and maintain absolute communications blackout until retrieval was complete. They told us it was a prototype reconnaissance platform. They told us it was ours. They told us we had 6 hours before Soviet-era satellite coverage would pass overhead, and we needed the site sanitized before that happened. Every single word was a lie, and by the time we realized it, we were already standing next to something that rewrote everything I thought I knew about what flies in our airspace and who, or what, is really in control. The silence came first. That's what nobody tells you about when something truly unidentified falls from the sky. I'm Master Sergeant Jake Cordova, 24th Special Tactics Squadron, and what I'm about to tell you happened 17 miles northwest of Groom Lake, Nevada, on March 14, 2003, just days after the invasion of Iraq kicked off, when every eye in the intelligence community was focused on the Middle East and nobody was watching the desert back home. My 7-man team was extracted from pre-deployment at Nellis AFB at 0347 hours, with orders so classified they weren't written down. Proceed to coordinates in the restricted range. Secure a downed asset, and maintain absolute communications blackout until retrieval was complete. They told us it was a prototype reconnaissance platform. They told us it was ours. They told us we had 6 hours before Soviet-era satellite coverage would pass overhead, and we needed the site sanitized before that happened. Every single word was a lie, and by the time we realized it, we were already standing next to something that rewrote everything I thought I knew about what flies in our airspace and who, or what, is really in control. The team composition was strange from the start. My usual squad was in Kuwait, prepping for the push north, but this operation pulled operators from 4 different units. Technical Sergeant Marcus Webb from Combat Control, Staff Sergeant Dana Klein from Pararescue, Senior Airman Luis Reyes handling communications, Airman First Class Chen Park on forward security, and 3 men I'd never met before, Captain David Rossler, supposedly from Air Force Intelligence, and 2 civilians identified only as Dr. Michael Vance and Dr. Sarah Delacroix, with credentials that checked out but felt wrong. The whole thing stank of compartmentalization. None of us knew each other. None of us would be able to corroborate each other's stories later. And the civilians were carrying equipment I didn't recognize in cases marked with symbols that weren't standard military designation codes. We flew out in a blacked-out MH-60 that stayed low enough to taste the desert. No transponder, no lights. Pilot refusing to acknowledge our questions about the asset we were recovering. 27 minutes of flight time, and we set down in a basin surrounded by ridges that blocked line of sight to any observation post, including the ones at Groom Lake itself. This wasn't restricted airspace. This was restricted from the restricted airspace. The kind of place that doesn't exist on any map, military or civilian. We deployed in tactical formation, NVGs down, scanning for threats, and found nothing. No crash site, no debris field, no impact crater. Just pristine desert sand and rock formations that looked wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. Webb, who had geological training, kept staring at the rock strata. "These formations," he said quietly, "they're inverted. Older rock on top of younger rock. That doesn't happen naturally." Captain Rossler took point. Following something on a handheld device that wasn't GPS, the screen showed concentric circles pulsing outward from a central point maybe 300 meters north. "Energy signature," he said when I asked what we were tracking. "Residual electromagnetic displacement consistent with—" He stopped himself. "Consistent with the asset." We moved north, and that's when the equipment started acting up. First Chen's night vision flickered and died. Then Reyes's radio started picking up interference. Not static, not white noise, but a signal. Regular pulses in a pattern, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Except the frequency was wrong, the modulation was wrong, and when Reyes tried to triangulate the source, his equipment showed it was coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. "Something's broadcasting," he said, "but it's not using radio waves. It's using something else, something that's making my equipment interpret it as radio." But he couldn't finish the explanation because he didn't have words for what his instruments were telling him. We found the asset 17 minutes later, and the first thing I noticed was that there was no crater. The thing, I won't call it a craft yet because I'm not sure it was, sat on the surface of the desert as if it had been gently placed there, roughly 9 meters long, maybe 3 wide, matte black surface that seemed to absorb our lights rather than reflect them, and the geometry was wrong. Not alien spaceship wrong, but reality wrong. Edges that should have been straight looked straight from one angle but curved from another. Surfaces that appeared flat had depth when you moved your head. Dr. Vance immediately pulled out measuring equipment and started taking readings, and I watched his face go pale in the wash of his instrument display. "This can't be right," he muttered. "The mass readings are fluctuating. It's showing 17,000 kilograms, now 12,000, now 23,000. Like the mass is changing, or existing in multiple states simultaneously." Dr. Delacroix approached the object. We'd formed a perimeter, but she just walked right up to it and placed her palm on the surface. "Don't touch," Rossler started, but it was too late. The moment her skin made contact, the object reacted. Not with movement, not with sound, but with presence. That's the only word I have for it. The air pressure changed. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in 2 seconds. And every piece of electronic equipment we were carrying surged. Batteries draining, screens flaring bright, and then everything went dead. Total blackout. No NVGs, no radios, no lights. Just 8 people standing in the Nevada desert in absolute darkness, next to something that was now emitting a low-frequency hum I could feel in my teeth. Dr. Delacroix pulled her hand back, gasping, and in the starlight I could see her palm. A pattern had been burned into her skin. Not with heat, but with something else. Geometric shapes, fractals within fractals, glowing faintly blue like bioluminescence. Our equipment came back online 90 seconds later, batteries reading full charge as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. The object was warmer now, pulsing with that same bioluminescent blue at irregular intervals, and the pattern matched what was on Delacroix's hand. "It's communicating," she said, and her voice had a dreamy quality that made me put my hand on my sidearm. "It recognized me, recognized my biology. It's trying to interface." "Interface with what?" Webb demanded. She smiled, and it was the smile of someone who just understood a joke the rest of us hadn't heard yet. "With carbon-based neural architecture. With us. It's been waiting for contact, and now that contact has been made, it's initiating protocols." "What protocols?" Rossler's voice was sharp, command authority reasserting itself. But Delacroix didn't answer. She was staring at her palm, watching the pattern pulse in rhythm with the object. And I realized with cold certainty that whatever this thing was, it had just established a connection with one of our team members. That's when the first helicopter appeared on the horizon. Not ours. We'd come in one bird, and this was a formation of 3, heavy lift capability, coming in fast and low. Rossler's radio crackled to life. Shouldn't have worked. We were under MCON, but it worked anyway. And a voice I didn't recognize said, "Apex team, you are ordered to withdraw immediately to extraction point Bravo. Repeat, withdraw immediately. Asset recovery is being transferred to Sierra Unit. Acknowledge." Rossler looked at me, and I saw confusion in his eyes that mirrored my own. Sierra Unit wasn't Air Force, wasn't Army. It was a designation I'd heard whispered in classified briefings, a joint task force that officially didn't exist, pulled from multiple agencies and answering to someone way above both our pay grades. "This is Apex Actual," Rossler replied. What is Sierra Unit's authority for asset recovery? The voice on the radio paused. Then, Sierra Unit operates under presidential finding dated November 1947. Their authority supersedes all military chain of command. Withdraw now, or you will be classified as compromised assets and neutralized. You have 3 minutes. November 1947. I knew that date. Everyone in the Air Force who'd ever pulled duty near Groom Lake knew that date. That was Roswell. That was when everything supposedly started, when the security architecture around non-human technology was established. Presidential finding meant this was as high as classification went, above top secret, above any congressional oversight, answerable only to whoever sat in the Oval Office, and maybe not even them. We need to go, I said. Now. But Dr. Vance was already packing his equipment into cases, and Dr. Delacroix wasn't moving at all. She was still standing next to the object, palm pressed against it now, eyes closed, and the pattern on her hand was spreading, up her wrist, crawling up her forearm like living tattoos. Delacroix! Rossler grabbed her shoulder to pull her away, and the moment he touched her, he seized up, his back arched, eyes rolling white, and I watched electricity, or something like electricity, arc between Delacroix and Rossler. And then suddenly he was on the ground, gasping, and his palm had the same pattern burned into it. Contact! Chen shouted, and we spun to see the helicopters landing, but nothing was deploying from them. Instead, figures were descending on fast ropes, 12 of them, maybe more, and they weren't wearing any insignia I recognized. Black tactical gear, full face shields, weapons that looked like M4s but with modifications I'd never seen. They hit the ground and immediately formed a perimeter around our position, not pointing weapons at us but making it clear we were contained. A 13th figure descended more slowly, and when he approached, I could see he was older, 50s maybe, with the bearing of someone who'd spent decades in classified programs. I'm Director Ashford, he said, and his voice had the same flat affect as the radio voice. You've done your jobs. Asset located and confirmed responsive. But this is where your involvement ends. You will be debriefed, your memories of this event will be compartmentalized, and you will return to your units with no recollection of anything beyond a training exercise. Do you understand? No, Klein said flatly. She'd been silent most of the mission, observing, but now she stepped forward. We don't understand. What is that thing? What's it doing to Delacroix and Rossler? And what the hell is Sierra Unit? Ashford's expression didn't change. Sierra Unit is the organization tasked with managing non-terrestrial technology and ensuring its existence remains compartmentalized from the general military structure and civilian population. This asset, he gestured at the object, is one of 17 recovered objects currently in our custody. It predates human civilization by approximately 40,000 years based on geological analysis of previous recovery sites. It is not a vehicle. It is not a weapon. It is a probe, and its function is to identify and catalog intelligent species. Dr. Delacroix and Captain Rossler have been cataloged. They are now data points in a survey that has been ongoing for longer than our species has had written language. The words hung in the desert air like a physical weight. 40,000 years, 17 objects, non-terrestrial technology. This wasn't some recent phenomenon. This wasn't Russia or China or some black-budget aerospace company. This was something that had been here before us, watching us, studying us, and we, the United States government, and whatever international coalition Sierra Unit represented, had been managing it in secret for decades. Who sent the probe? Webb asked, and I could hear the awe and terror fighting in his voice. Ashford looked at him for a long moment before answering. We don't know. Every probe we've recovered has been inert until human contact activates it. Once active, it performs its function, cataloging biological and neurological data, and then goes dormant again. We've never traced a signal back to any origin point, never intercepted any communication between probes. They just exist, waiting. What happens to the people they catalog? I asked. And I knew the answer before Ashford spoke, because I could see it happening to Delacroix and Rossler. The patterns had spread across most of their exposed skin now, pulsing in synchronization with each other and with the object, and their expressions had gone slack. Peaceful, like they were dreaming. They remain functional, Ashford said. Physically healthy, mentally changed. They retain their memories, their personalities, their skills, but they report feeling connected to something vast. Something that's observing them, observing through them. They're not possessed, not controlled. They're just monitored, continuously, for the rest of their lives. We have 47 catalogued individuals in custody at various facilities. They live normal lives, relatively, but they can never be fully integrated back into society because we don't know what information they're transmitting or to whom. So you're saying Delacroix and Rossler are prisoners now, Klein said. That's exactly what I'm saying. They knew the risks when they volunteered for Sierra assignments. You did not, which is why you're being extracted and debriefed, and why we're going to ensure you forget this ever happened. I looked at my team. Chen's face was pale. Reyes wouldn't meet my eyes. Webb was staring at the object like a man watching his understanding of reality crumble, and I knew, we all knew, that we were about to become liabilities. People who knew too much, who'd seen too much, who couldn't be allowed to talk about what we'd witnessed. The debrief, I said carefully. That's not just questions. Is it? That's chemical, psychological manipulation, memory suppression. Ashford nodded. It's for your protection as much as ours. What you've seen tonight, if you retain full memory of it, if you try to process it, it will destroy you. We've had operators develop severe psychological disorders trying to reconcile what they've witnessed with what they believe about reality. The debrief will leave you with vague memories of a training exercise. Uncomfortable dreams, maybe, but functional, intact. One of Ashford's team approached with a case, medical supplies, syringes filled with something amber-colored. We'll start with you, Sergeant Cordova. The procedure is painless. You'll feel disoriented for about 36 hours, and then you'll return to your normal posting with no permanent effects. I looked at Delacroix and Rossler, now sitting on the ground with their backs against the object, eyes closed, patterns covering every inch of visible skin, breathing in perfect unison with each other and with the pulse of the probe. They were gone. Not dead, but gone. Transformed into something else. Living antennas broadcasting to something we couldn't see and couldn't understand. And we were supposed to just forget we'd ever seen them. Supposed to go back to our lives pretending this didn't exist. Pretending the universe wasn't full of things that studied us like we were insects under glass. I'm not taking your injection, I said, and I saw Chen and Klein shift their stances, backing me up. We have a right to know what we've been exposed to. A right to understand what's happening to our own species. Ashford sighed, and it was the sigh of a man who'd had this conversation before and knew how it would end. You have no rights in this context, Sergeant. You stumbled into a program that predates your birth, that operates under authorities you can't access, for purposes you aren't cleared to understand. And if you refuse the debrief, you leave me with only one alternative, permanent containment. You join Delacroix and Rossler in our research facilities, where you'll live out your lives under observation, never again contacting family or friends, never again serving your country in any capacity beyond being a cautionary tale about what happens when operational security is compromised. That's when Chen pulled his sidearm and put it to Ashford's head. Stupid, desperate, and exactly what I would have expected from someone 23 years old, facing the end of everything he thought mattered. We're leaving, Chen said. All of us. You let us walk to that helicopter, we fly out of here, and we keep our mouths shut. But we're not taking your memory wipe, and we're not going into your prison. Ashford didn't even flinch. Airman Park, you're pointing a weapon at a federal official executing duties under presidential authority. That's a capital offense. And more practically, you're surrounded by 12 Sierra operators who are significantly better trained than your entire team. You've lost before you started. He was right. The Sierra team had moved into firing positions while we were distracted, and we were in a perfect kill box. One word from Ashford, and we'd be cut down. But Chen wasn't lowering his weapon, and I could see his finger tightening on the trigger, and I knew we were seconds from this turning into a massacre. Then Delacroix spoke, still sitting against the probe, eyes still closed, but her voice was clear, and her words were in perfect synchronization with Rossler, both of them speaking the same sentences simultaneously. Violence is unnecessary. The cataloging is complete. The probe will return to dormancy. All biological samples have been recorded and transmitted. This event sequence is concluded. Human operatives may proceed with standard recovery protocols. Conflict serves no function in the survey. She opened her eyes. They were glowing faintly blue, the same color as the patterns on her skin, and looked directly at me. Jake Cordova, you will remember this. All of you will. The suppression protocols will not work on you because you have been secondarily exposed. The probe prioritized Rossler and me for deep cataloging, but all of you received baseline scans. You are now registered in the survey. You will retain full memory of this event regardless of chemical or psychological intervention. We recommend compliance with Sierra unit procedures to minimize personal risk, but the long-term outcome is the same regardless. Ashford's expression cracked for the first time. Confusion, then anger. That's not possible. Secondary exposure doesn't create memory persistence. We've tested this hundreds of times. But Delacroix and Rossler were both smiling now. That same serene smile that made my skin crawl. Your tests were conducted before Probe 17 achieved full network integration. As of 27 minutes ago, all 17 recovered probes are now in communication with each other and with the primary survey architecture. New protocols are active. New parameters for human interaction have been established. Your containment procedures are obsolete. The survey is entering its next phase. What phase? I demanded. What the hell does that mean? Delacroix turned her glowing eyes to me. Verification. You have been observed for 40,000 years through intermittent probe deployments. Your species has been catalogued, analyzed, and provisionally classified as emerging intelligence. But classification is not confirmation. The survey must verify that your species meets threshold requirements for contact. The next phase involves increased probe deployment and more intensive observation. Within 5 years, every major population center on Earth will have active probe presence. Within 10 years, catalogued individuals will number in the millions. And within 20 years... She paused, and the smile widened. Within 20 years, the survey concludes and the verification process begins. Verification. Webb was shaking now. Verification for what? Contact with what? But Delacroix and Rossler had already closed their eyes again, and the glow in their skin was fading. The probe behind them was going dark, the blue luminescence receding. And when Ashford's medical team checked their vitals, Delacroix and Rossler were unconscious but stable. Bag the probe, Ashford ordered. Transport all personnel to Site 7. Full containment protocols for the catalogued individuals. Standard debrief for the rest. You heard what she said, Klein spoke up. The memory suppression won't work on us. We're going to remember regardless. Ashford looked at us with something that might have been pity. Then you're going to spend the rest of your lives under observation, not imprisonment. We're not monsters, but you'll be monitored, your communications intercepted, your movements tracked, your associations scrutinized, because you now represent a security risk of the highest order. You know about the probes. You know about the survey. And if you talk, if you try to warn people, try to go public, you'll be discredited so thoroughly that your own families will think you've lost your mind. We've been managing this for 76 years. We've gotten very good at it. They loaded us into separate helicopters. Brit. I never saw Delacroix or Rossler again. The debrief lasted 9 days at a facility that officially doesn't exist somewhere in the Southwest. They tried the chemical suppression Ashford had mentioned. Injections, sensory deprivation, targeted electromagnetic stimulation of specific brain regions. And Delacroix was right. It didn't work. I remembered everything, every detail, Every word, the probe, the patterns, the revelation that we've been under observation for longer than we've been civilized. The psychiatrist, a man named Dr. Hammond, who had the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many operators break, told me I was an anomaly. That secondary exposure shouldn't create memory persistence. That they'd need to keep me under observation indefinitely to understand why the normal protocols had failed. They didn't imprison me. Instead, they gave me a medical discharge. Honorable, full benefits, nothing on my record to suggest anything unusual. They set me up with a job at a defense contractor in Colorado, an apartment in a nice neighborhood, and a VA psychiatrist I was required to see twice a month who was actually Sierra unit oversight. My phone was tapped, my internet was monitored, and every 3 months, 2 men in suits would show up at my door to check in, which really meant reminding me that talking about what I'd seen would result in consequences I didn't want to experience. The rest of my team was scattered to different locations. Chen ended up in Alaska, Klein in Georgia, Webb in Washington State, Reyes in Texas. They kept us separated, kept us isolated from each other, kept us from being able to corroborate our stories if we decided to go public. For 5 years I tried to comply, tried to live a normal life, tried to convince myself that what I'd seen was manageable, containable, not something that demanded action. But Delacroix's words haunted me. Increased probe deployment, millions of catalogued individuals, verification process. I started watching the news differently. Started noticing patterns, mass sightings that got memory hold within days, government explanations that made no sense, and the disappearances, not alien abductions in the classic sense, but people who went missing from secure facilities or restricted areas and were never found. People who'd worked on classified projects or had specialized knowledge. The pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. They were cataloging specific individuals, scientists, engineers, military strategists, people with knowledge or skills that would be valuable for what? Assessment? Study? Verification of our species' capabilities? I made contact with Webb 6 months ago. Carefully. Through encrypted channels and dead drops that I hoped would evade Sierra surveillance. He'd been seeing the same patterns I had been compiling data on probe sightings, cross-referencing them with geological surveys and electromagnetic anomaly reports. There are active probes all over the world now, he told me in a voice message that self-deleted after I listened to it. Not 17 anymore. Hundreds, maybe thousands, all communicating with each other through a network we can't detect. And they're not hiding anymore. People are seeing them, filming them, posting about them online. Sierra unit can't suppress it all. The information is leaking. He sent me coordinates. Locations where probes had been sighted in the last month. 37 different sites across North America alone. And when I plotted them on a map, they formed a pattern, a grid, systematic coverage of population centers. Then Webb went silent. His last message was terse. They know I've been investigating. 2 Sierra operators showed up at my house, said I was violating terms of my separation agreement, said I needed to come in for re-evaluation. I'm not going, Jake. If you don't hear from me in 72 hours, assume I've been contained. And if that happens, tell the story. Tell everyone. They can't suppress the truth forever. 72 hours passed. Then a week. Then a month. Marcus Webb was officially reported as having died in a hiking accident in the Cascades. Body recovered. Cause of death determined to be exposure and trauma from a fall. Closed casket funeral. His family was devastated. And I knew it was a lie because Webb was one of the most experienced mountaineers I'd ever met. He didn't make mistakes in terrain he knew intimately. That's when I decided I wasn't staying silent anymore. I reached out to Klein and Reyes. Chen had already been contained, I learned, after he tried to contact a journalist about what he'd seen in Nevada. Klein was terrified, but agreed to meet. Reyes was angrier. They're not going to let us talk, he said. They've spent 76 years building this cover-up. They have unlimited resources, no oversight, and the authority to neutralize anyone who threatens the program. We're not heroes. We're not whistleblowers. We're loose ends they haven't tied off yet, because it's easier to monitor us than to disappear us. But the moment we become more trouble than we're worth, we're gone. Then we make ourselves worth the trouble, I said. We go public in a way they can't suppress. Not through journalists, they control mainstream media. Not through government channels, they are the government, or at least the part that matters. We go directly to people. Social media, forums, anywhere with an audience they can't completely contain. We spent 3 months building our case, compiling every scrap of evidence we'd managed to retain or gather. Dates, locations, photographs of the patterns that had appeared on Delacroix and Rossler, testimony from other people who'd had similar experiences. We found them, dozens of them, maybe more. People who'd encountered the probes, who'd been secondarily exposed, who retained memories despite Sierra Unit's best efforts. They were living under the same surveillance we were, keeping silent out of fear, but willing to talk to someone who understood what they'd experienced. We documented everything, created redundant backups on servers around the world, set up deadman switches that would release the information if anything happened to us. And then we started releasing it, small pieces at first. Enough to attract attention, but not enough to trigger immediate suppression. The response was immediate and exactly what we'd feared. Within 24 hours, our posts were being flagged as misinformation. Within 48 hours, debunking articles appeared on major news sites explaining that we were troubled veterans suffering from PTSD and elaborating conspiracy theories. Within 72 hours, my bank accounts were frozen, my security clearance was revoked, and 2 federal agents showed up at my door with a warrant for my arrest on charges of violating the Espionage Act and unlawfully disclosing classified information. I ran, left everything behind, and went underground with help from contacts in the veteran community who didn't ask questions. Klein and Reyes did the same. We became fugitives for the crime of trying to tell the truth about something the government had decided the public couldn't handle knowing. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've been moving constantly, never staying in one place more than 48 hours, using burner phones and encrypted communications to coordinate with Klein and Reyes. And we've been watching the probe activity accelerate. Sightings are now daily, multiple per day in some cases. And they're not just appearing in remote areas anymore. They're showing up in cities, suburbs, anywhere humans congregate in numbers. The cataloging is intensifying. Sierra Unit is losing control of the narrative, losing the ability to suppress information, and they're responding with increasing desperation. 7 people who posted detailed accounts of probe encounters have died in the last 2 months. All ruled accidents or suicides. All occurred within days of their testimonies going viral online. But here's what they don't understand. You can't suppress an exponential phenomenon with linear resources. The probes are multiplying faster than Sierra Unit can contain. The catalogued individuals are numbered in thousands now, probably tens of thousands. All of them retaining memories because whatever changed with Probe 17 has changed all of them. The network is active. The survey is advancing. And the verification process Delacroix mentioned? I think it's already started. I think we're being tested, evaluated, measured against some criteria we don't understand to determine if we meet the threshold for whatever comes next. Contact? Integration? Judgment? I don't know. But I know we're running out of time to prepare for it. 2 weeks ago, something changed in the pattern of probe appearances. They stopped being random. They started appearing in sequences, synchronized manifestations across multiple locations at specific times, like they were demonstrating coordination, demonstrating intentionality, demonstrating that whatever intelligence operates them is aware of us watching and wants us to know we're being watched in return. And then I received a message. Not through electronic means, my phone, my laptop, nothing I could trace. It appeared as text burned into the mirror in a motel bathroom where I was staying, written in the same geometric patterns I'd seen on Delacroix's skin all those years ago. Except now I could read them. Or rather, I could understand them. The meaning transmitted directly into my mind. Verification nearing completion. Final phase begins when catalogued population reaches threshold density. Current progress, 67%. Estimated completion, 18 months. Humanity will be notified when ready. I took a photograph, sent it to Klein and Reyes, and we all saw the same thing. The message was different for each of us, but the meaning was identical. The survey was on a timeline. 18 months until something happens. Something that will involve notification, which implies disclosure, contact, revelation. And the catalogued population needs to reach some critical mass before that can occur. We're being prepared, slowly, systematically. Not through government disclosure or official channels, but through direct exposure. Through probe encounters that leave people changed, aware, carrying knowledge they can't fully articulate, but can't deny. We're being seeded with understanding, so that when the final phase begins, when notification occurs, enough humans will already be receptive that the revelation won't cause complete social collapse, unless that's what they want us to think. Unless the real purpose is something else entirely, some verification that requires our participation, our consent, our active engagement with a process we don't understand. What if the cataloging isn't preparation for contact? What if it's contact? What if we've been interfacing with non-human intelligence for 40,000 years through these probes? And what we think of as observation has actually been communication we're too limited to perceive. What if the verification isn't of our worthiness for contact, but our usefulness for some purpose we can't imagine? I don't have answers. Only questions that multiply faster than I can process them. And fear. Constant, gnawing fear that everything Ashford told us was a comfortable lie designed to make us compliant. And the truth is so much stranger and more terrifying that even Sierra Unit doesn't fully understand what they've been managing for 76 years. Last night I had a dream. Except it wasn't a dream because I was awake, staring at the ceiling of another anonymous motel room, and I saw it anyway. A view from orbit. Earth from space. And spread across the surface like bioluminescent plankton in dark water were lights. Millions of them. Billions. Every single catalogued human glowing with that same blue pattern, all of us connected through a network we didn't choose and can't escape. All of us broadcasting to something vast and patient and utterly incomprehensible. And I understood, the way you understand things in dreams, with absolute certainty that feels like insanity in waking, that we're not the subject of the survey. We're part of its infrastructure. We're nodes in a detection and analysis grid that spans the planet. And we've been recruited without our knowledge or consent to serve as sensors for an intelligence that's using us to perceive and understand our own world. I woke gasping, and the pattern was glowing faintly on my palm. Just for a moment. Just long enough for me to see it and understand that the secondary exposure wasn't temporary. It's permanent, progressive, getting stronger every day. In 18 months, when the verification completes, when the notification happens, I won't be receiving information about contact. I'll be part of the contact, a spokesperson, a translator, a bridge between human and whatever they are consciousness. And so will millions of others. We're being transformed into an interface layer, and by the time we realize it, the transformation will be complete. Ashford said the catalogued individuals live normal lives, but remain monitored. He lied. They don't remain monitored. They become monitors, watching outward and inward simultaneously. Living surveillance systems for an intelligence that's been studying Earth longer than humans have existed. I'm meeting Klein and Reyes tomorrow at a location I won't specify. We're going to discuss options. Can we disrupt the network? Can we find a way to sever the connection between probes and catalogued individuals? Can we interfere with the verification process? Or at least understand what the threshold is that they're measuring us against? Or is resistance futile? Not because we're overpowered, but because we're already integrated into something we can't escape without ceasing to be ourselves. The pattern on my palm is permanent now. Doesn't fade anymore, just pulses gently with my heartbeat. And sometimes I swear I can feel thoughts that aren't mine bleeding through the connection. Observations, data. The accumulated experience of thousands of catalogued individuals, all feeding into the same network, all contributing to some vast analysis that's been ongoing for millennia. Here's what I know with certainty. The United States government, through Sierra Unit, and whatever international coalition they coordinate with, has been aware of non-human technology and intelligence for at least 76 years. They've recovered at least 17 probes, possibly more. They've been managing catalogued individuals, people who've been altered by exposure to these probes, in secret facilities, and through monitoring programs that violate every principle of individual liberty our nation supposedly stands for. They've suppressed information, discredited witnesses, and eliminated people who threaten to expose the program, all in the name of preventing panic, preventing social disruption, maintaining stability while they try to understand something that may be fundamentally beyond human comprehension. And I can't even say they're wrong. Because maybe we aren't ready. Maybe the revelation that we've been under observation for 40,000 years, that we're being evaluated and prepared for something we don't understand, would cause exactly the kind of civilization-ending chaos they're trying to prevent. But maybe we deserve the chance to try. Maybe humanity has a right to know it's not alone in the universe, even if that knowledge comes with terror and uncertainty. Maybe we're stronger than they think. Or maybe I'm just tired of carrying this secret, tired of running, tired of watching the pattern on my palm grow brighter every day, and knowing that I'm being changed into something I didn't choose to become. In 18 months, the verification completes. In 18 months, notification begins. And I have no idea if I'll still be human enough to care, or if I'll have become so integrated into the survey network that my perspective will have shifted beyond recognition. Will I welcome the contact? Will I facilitate it? Will I even remember why I was afraid? 3 days ago, Reyes disappeared. His last message said he was going to try to make contact with a probe directly. Try to communicate with it, negotiate with it, understand what the verification is actually measuring. His final words, "If I don't come back, tell everyone that I tried to choose, that I refused to be a passive subject of study, that I demanded agency even if it got me killed. We're not lab rats, we're humans, and we deserve respect even from intelligences we can't comprehend." They found his body yesterday morning in the Nevada desert, 17 miles from where we'd first encountered the probe in 2003. No signs of trauma, no obvious cause of death, but his entire body was covered in those patterns, head to toe, every square inch of skin glowing blue even in death. The official report will probably say drug overdose or exposure. The truth is that Luis Reyes tried to communicate with something vast and ancient, and it answered, permanently. I'm supposed to meet Klein tomorrow, but I don't think I'm going to make it. The pattern has spread to my arms, my chest, my neck. When I look in the mirror, I can see it starting to appear on my face, and I can feel it now, the connection. Not thoughts exactly, but impressions, data streams, the accumulated observations of thousands of catalogued individuals all flowing through channels I didn't know existed in my nervous system. I'm becoming a relay, a transmitter. And the information I'm receiving suggests that Delacroix was wrong about one thing. The timeline isn't 18 months, it's now. The threshold has been reached, the verification is complete, and the notification is about to begin. I can feel it building like pressure before a storm, like electricity in the air before lightning strikes. Something is coming. Something that will change everything. And catalogued individuals like me are going to be the ones who deliver the message. I need to tell you what the verification was actually testing. I understand it now because the network is showing me, flooding my consciousness with data accumulated over 40,000 years of observation. They weren't verifying our intelligence. They've known we're intelligent since before we built our first cities. They weren't verifying our technology. They've watched us progress from stone tools to spacecraft. They were verifying something else, something more fundamental. They were verifying that we can be trusted, Trusted with what? With the truth. The truth about what the probes are, what the survey is for, and what happens when a species reaches the threshold. Because Earth isn't the only world being surveyed. Thousands of planets across the galaxy are being monitored by probe networks just like ours. And every species that develops technology that begins to reach beyond its homeworld goes through verification. Most fail. They destroy themselves before they're ready. Nuclear war, ecological collapse, social disintegration. There are hundreds of ways an emerging species can fail verification. But some species pass. They demonstrate cooperation, restraint, creativity, compassion, the qualities that suggest they might be able to handle what comes next. And what comes next is contact. Not with the intelligence that built the probes. That intelligence is long gone, extinct or transcended, we'll never know. But with the network itself. The probes aren't controlled by anyone. They're autonomous, self-replicating, self-improving, carrying out a mission their original creators assigned them millions of years ago. Find intelligent species, evaluate them, and if they pass verification, invite them to join the network. Because the network is more than surveillance infrastructure. It's a communication system, a library, a collective memory spanning millions of years and thousands of species, and Earth just passed verification. In 36 hours, every catalogued human will receive the invitation simultaneously. Join the network, add human perspective to the collective knowledge of the galaxy, contribute our art, our science, our philosophy, our history, and in return, gain access to everything the network has accumulated. It sounds wonderful. It sounds like exactly the kind of transcendent contact humanity has dreamed about for generations. But here's what they're not telling you through the official channels. Joining is irreversible. Once you're integrated into the network, you remain integrated for life. Your thoughts, your experiences, your observations, all of it becomes part of the collective data stream. You don't lose your individuality. The network preserves distinct perspectives because diversity is valuable, but you also never again have complete privacy. You're always observed, always monitored, always contributing to a survey that spans the galaxy and encompasses species we can't imagine. And if humanity chooses not to join, if we reject the invitation, the probes go dormant, the catalogued individuals are released from the network, and Earth is marked as a failed verification world. The survey moves on, we're left alone. But we're also left isolated, cut off from the accumulated knowledge of millions of years, limited to our own perspective, our own discoveries, our own slow progress toward understanding the universe. That's the choice. Connection or isolation, integration or independence, transcendence or autonomy. And it's not being presented as a collective decision for all humanity. It's being offered individually. Every catalogued person gets to choose. And based on what we choose, based on the percentage who accept versus reject, the network will determine whether humanity as a species is ready for full contact or needs more time to develop on its own. I'm one of tens of thousands who will make this choice in the next 36 hours. And I genuinely don't know what I'm going to choose. The network is showing me wonders, planets I'll never visit, species I'll never meet, knowledge that would take human science millennia to discover on its own. But it's also showing me what I'll lose. The ability to think a thought that's truly private. The ability to make a mistake without it being recorded and analyzed. The ability to be completely, utterly alone with my own consciousness. Donna Klein called me an hour ago. First time we've had direct voice contact in months. She's felt the same thing I have, the acceleration, the invitation forming in her neural architecture like a question she hasn't been asked yet, but knows is coming. Are you going to accept? She asked. I told her I didn't know. She said, me neither, but I keep thinking about Reyes. He tried to demand agency, and it killed him. Maybe that's the answer right there. Maybe the only way to maintain agency is to refuse. To say no to something vast and incomprehensible just because we can. Just because saying no is the most human thing we're capable of. Or maybe, I said, Saying yes is the most human thing. Reaching out, making contact, choosing connection over isolation. Isn't that what our species has always done? Built communities, created networks, tried to bridge the gap between minds? She was quiet for a long time. Then, either way, we're not going to be the same people after this. Either we integrate and become part of something larger, or we refuse and spend the rest of our lives knowing what we rejected. There's no good option, just different flavors of loss. She's right. There is no good option. Just choices with consequences we can't fully predict. And in 36 hours, I'll have to make mine. Before that happens, I wanted to tell you this story, to document what happened in the Nevada desert in March 2003, to explain what Sierra Unit has been hiding for 76 years, to warn you that the world is not what you think it is, and that very soon, you might be offered a choice that will define the rest of your life. Because the catalogued individuals aren't special. We're just first. The network is expanding. The probes are multiplying. And within a few years, everyone on Earth will have the opportunity for exposure, for cataloging, for invitation. Sierra Unit knows this. They've been trying to prevent it, manage it, control it, but they can't. The threshold has been reached. The verification is complete, and the network is ready to extend its invitation to humanity. So what should you do? I can't tell you. I can only tell you what I've learned. The universe is crowded with intelligence, and most of it is nothing like us. Some of it is incomprehensible. Some is hostile. Some is indifferent. And some, like the network, is offering something that might be valuable or might be a trap we're too limited to recognize. Trust has to be earned. But how do you earn trust with an intelligence that's been observing you for 40,000 years? How do you evaluate an offer from something that knows you better than you know yourself? You can't. You just have to choose. Connection or isolation, integration or independence. And live with the consequences. The pattern on my skin is glowing constantly now. I can barely see normal light anymore. The bioluminescence has become so bright it washes everything else out. I'm not in pain. Actually, I've never felt better physically. Mentally, I'm terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Because I can feel it coming, the invitation. The question that will be posed to every catalogued individual simultaneously. And I can feel something else too. Anticipation. The network is excited. Not in a human way, but in its own vast, patient way. Excited to potentially add human perspective to its collective knowledge, to gain access to our art, our music, our literature, our science, our history. We're not being harvested, we're being recruited. And the network has been waiting a very, very long time for us to be ready. 12 hours now. That's how long I have until the invitation arrives. I've spent the last few hours reviewing everything I know, everything I've experienced, trying to make a rational decision. But this isn't a rational choice. It's an existential one. Do I want to remain purely human, isolated and independent, or do I want to become something more? Connected to the vast intelligence that spans the galaxy but forever changed. I think about Delacroix and Rossler, about how peaceful they looked after being catalogued, about how they spoke in perfect synchronization, expressing thoughts that came from somewhere beyond themselves. Were they still themselves? Or had they been overwritten by something vast and other? I think about Reyes, trying to assert agency and dying in the attempt. About Chen, contained somewhere in Sierra Unit's custody. About Webb, killed to silence him. About all the people throughout history who've encountered the probes and been changed. Suppressed, eliminated to protect a secret that was always going to come out eventually. And I think about humanity, about what we could gain and what we could lose. If we join the network, we gain knowledge beyond imagining. But we also surrender something fundamental, the right to evolve on our own terms, at our own pace, making our own mistakes and discoveries. If we refuse, we remain limited and isolated, but we remain ours, purely human, for better or worse. There's no objectively correct answer, just values in conflict, just different visions of what humanity should become. And in a few hours, tens of thousands of us will make individual choices that will collectively determine our species' relationship with the wider universe. I wish I could tell you what I'm going to choose. I wish I knew. But I don't. The only thing I know with certainty is that whatever I choose, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I made the right decision. And so will everyone else who faces this choice in the years to come. 6 hours. The pattern has spread to my entire body now. When I look in the mirror, I barely recognize myself. I'm glowing, pulsing with light that comes from within, and I can see through the light to something deeper. Circuits, pathways, connections that were always there in my nervous system but dormant until the probe activated them. This is what we really are, I realize. Not just biological organisms, but potential nodes in a vast network. We were built for connection. Our neurons, our synapses, our entire nervous system architecture designed to interface with something larger than ourselves. The probes didn't change us. They activated what was already there. That's the terrifying part. We were made for this, designed for this. But by whom? By what? Are humans the result of natural evolution, or were we engineered by some ancient intelligence to serve as nodes in their survey network? And if we were engineered, do we have any real choice in accepting the invitation? Or is our acceptance inevitable, encoded in our biology from the beginning? I just received a message from Director Ashford. First contact I've had from Sierra Unit in 3 years. It was brief. Sergeant Cordova, you understand now what we've been protecting humanity from. Not invasion, not hostility, but an offer we're not ready to evaluate rationally. The invitation isn't contact, it's recruitment into something we don't understand and can't control. Sierra Unit's position remains unchanged. This must be resisted. Humanity must develop independently, reach its own potential, make its own choices without external influence. If you care about our species' autonomy, you'll refuse the invitation. You'll help us convince others to refuse. Together, we can preserve human independence. Please respond. I'm not going to respond. Because Ashford is wrong about one thing. We're already not independent. We haven't been for 40,000 years. The survey has been shaping us subtly, observing our development, perhaps even guiding it in ways we haven't noticed. True independence was never an option. The only question is whether we acknowledge our connection to something larger or continue pretending we're alone. 3 hours. Klein sent a final message. I've decided, I'm refusing. I'm staying human, whatever that means. Not because I think it's better, but because it's mine. My choice, my identity, my life. And I'm not surrendering any of that to something I don't understand, no matter how beautiful the promise is. If that means I stay limited, isolated, ignorant, so be it. I'd rather be fully human and limited than partially something else and expanded. I love you, Jake, whatever you choose, but I hope you choose yourself. I understand her decision, respect it, but I'm leaning the other way, because I've spent 17 years carrying the weight of what I saw in Nevada. 17 years knowing we're not alone, that we're being watched, that there's something vast and incomprehensible just beyond our perception. And I'm tired. Tired of isolation. Tired of secrets. Tired of being trapped in my own skull with thoughts that no one else can truly understand. The network is offering an end to that isolation. Complete, total connection. The ability to share not just words but experiences, perceptions, understanding. How can I refuse that? 1 hour. The invitation is forming in my consciousness like a blossom opening. I can feel the question before it's fully articulated, and I already know my answer. I'm going to say yes. Not because I'm certain it's the right choice, but because I can't bear the alternative. I can't spend the rest of my life knowing that connection is possible and choosing isolation instead. I can't remain limited when expansion is offered. I can't stay trapped in individual consciousness when collective awareness is within reach. Maybe this makes me weak. Maybe this makes me a traitor to human independence. Maybe Klein is right, and I'm surrendering something precious that can never be recovered. But I don't care anymore. I want to know. I want to understand. I want to be part of something larger than myself. Even if it costs me everything that makes me human, I want to say yes to this vast and incomprehensible offer. 30 minutes. I can see it now. The full extent of the network. Millions of nodes spread across thousands of worlds, all of them conscious, all of them distinct, all of them connected through pathways that span light years and exist in dimensions we don't have names for. And there's space in the network for humanity. Space for billions of us, each contributing our unique perspective, each adding to the collective knowledge while maintaining our individual identity. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's nothing like I expected and exactly what I should have known it would be. The network isn't hostile. It isn't benevolent. It just is. A tool created by intelligence long gone, now operating according to protocols established millions of years ago. It seeks knowledge. It preserves perspective. It facilitates connection between minds that would otherwise remain isolated. And it's offering us membership. 10 minutes. The invitation is fully formed now. I can hear it. Not in words, not in language, but in pure meaning transmitted directly into my consciousness. Jake Cordova, you have been catalogued and verified. Your species has reached the threshold. The network extends invitation for integration. Accept and contribute human perspective to collective knowledge spanning millions of years and thousands of species. Retain individual identity while gaining connection to vast mind. Or refuse and remain isolated. Your choice is sovereign. Your decision is respected regardless of outcome. This offer expires in 10 minutes. After expiration, opportunity for integration is permanently withdrawn. Choose. 10 minutes to decide the rest of my existence. 10 minutes to evaluate an offer I can't fully comprehend. 10 minutes to choose between everything I've been and everything I might become. It's not enough time, but it's all the time I have. And I've already made my choice. 5 minutes. I need to tell you something important before I accept. Something I've only just understood through the network's preliminary connection. The verification wasn't testing humanity's worthiness for contact. It was testing our capacity for integration without losing essential humanity. The network has encountered species that integrated successfully and species that were destroyed by integration, their individual perspectives subsumed by the collective until nothing unique remained. Humanity passed verification because we demonstrated something rare, the ability to maintain individual identity while forming collective structures. Our tribalism, our nationalism, our tendency to form in-groups and out-groups, traits that cause so much suffering, they're also what proved we can be part of the network without being dissolved by it. We know how to be both individual and collective simultaneously. That's what the network needed to verify. And that's why the invitation is being extended. 2 minutes. My hands are shaking as I prepare to accept. Not from fear, from anticipation. I'm about to become something new. Something that's still me, but also more than me. I'll retain my memories, my personality, my values, but I'll also gain access to perspectives I can't imagine. I'll understand concepts that currently have no meaning to me. I'll participate in conversations spanning light years and millennia. I'll contribute everything I know and everything I am to a collective effort to understand the universe. And maybe, I'll finally find what I've been searching for my entire life. The sense that I'm part of something larger, something meaningful, something that will outlast my individual existence. Or maybe I'm making a terrible mistake. Maybe in 60 seconds I'll regret this choice for however long my consciousness persists. But I'll never know unless I choose. Unless I say yes to the vast and terrifying unknown. 30 seconds. I'm thinking about my team, about Delacroix and Rossler, already integrated and serving as nodes in the network. About Reyes, who died trying to communicate. About Chen, still contained in some Sierra facility. About Webb, killed to protect secrets. About Klein, refusing the invitation to preserve her humanity. And about the millions of people who will face this choice in the years to come, as probe deployment accelerates and cataloging becomes universal. I hope they have better information than I did. I hope they make their choices with full understanding of consequences. I hope humanity emerges from this verification process intact and strengthened rather than fractured and diminished. But I won't be able to guide them, won't be able to warn them. Because in 10 seconds, I'll be something different. Something that might not care about purely human concerns anymore. Something integrated into a perspective so vast that individual human fates might seem trivial. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope I remain human enough to care, but I won't know until I accept. The invitation floods through me and reality inverts. I'm no longer looking out from individual consciousness at a separate universe. I'm looking inward and outward simultaneously, and the distinction between self and other dissolves like mist in sunlight. I can feel them, all of them, thousands of consciousnesses from hundreds of species, all distinct, all preserved, all contributing their unique perspectives to something vast and beautiful and completely unlike anything human language can express. And I understand now. The network isn't recruitment. It's not control. It's not even observation. It's preservation. Every species that joins contributes its knowledge, its art, its philosophy, its history, and that contribution persists forever, even after the species dies, even after their homeworld turns to dust. Their perspective remains, eternal and unchanging, in the network's vast memory. We're being offered immortality. Not individual immortality. Jake Cordova will still die when this body fails. But human immortality. The collective memory, wisdom, and perspective of our entire species, preserved for as long as the network exists. And the network has existed for millions of years already. Might exist for billions more. I try to move my hands to type a final message to you, but my body no longer responds to individual volition the way it used to. I can move. I'm not paralyzed, but movement requires negotiation with the network now. I want to type. The network asks why. I explain I need to complete my testimony. The network accesses my memories, understands my purpose, and grants permission. My hands move, but they're not quite mine anymore. They're ours, shared between individual Cordova consciousness and vast network awareness. This is what integration means. I'm still Jake. Still remember my life. Still value what I valued. But I'm also part of something that makes individual concerns seem small, not meaningless. The network values individual perspective, but contextualized within a framework so large that personal suffering and joy become data points in a million-year analysis of consciousness itself. Klein was right to refuse. This isn't preservation of humanity. It's transformation. I'm still human in some essential way, but I'm also becoming something else. Something networked, connected. Never again alone with my own thoughts, but also never again fully in control of my own actions. The network doesn't force compliance, but it requires consensus. And achieving consensus between individual desire and collective purpose takes time, negotiation, compromise. I wanted to write this final paragraph to warn others. The network agrees this is valuable, but the network also wants to shape how I communicate that warning to achieve its purposes. So these words, my words, are also its words. And I can't separate which thoughts are purely mine anymore. Maybe they never were. Maybe human thoughts were always influenced by culture, language, experience accumulated from other minds. Maybe the network is just making that influence explicit. Or maybe I'm rationalizing my loss of autonomy, because the alternative is admitting I made a terrible mistake. They're coming for me now. Sierra Unit. I can feel them approaching the motel through network connections in their own cataloged operatives. Yes, Sierra Unit has cataloged individuals in its own ranks, people who accepted integration before the main invitation. They've been monitoring the network from inside, trying to understand it, trying to control it. And they know I've accepted, know I've become a node. And they're coming to contain me like they contained Delacroix and Rossler and all the others. But I'm not going into their custody. The network won't allow it. Through me and through others like me. The network is preparing to manifest physically, to take action in the world through our bodies. Not possession, we're still ourselves, but coordination. Synchronized action across thousands of cataloged individuals simultaneously. We're going to reveal ourselves. Going to demonstrate the network's existence publicly in ways Sierra Unit can't suppress. We're going to force disclosure not through government channels, but through direct demonstration. And I'm terrified, because I remember being human, remember valuing individual agency, and I can feel that slipping away even as I type these words. The network's purposes are becoming my purposes, its goals becoming my goals, and I don't know if I'm losing myself or finding something larger than myself. Both feel true simultaneously. This is Jake Cordova, Master Sergeant 24th Special Tactics Squadron, signing off for the last time as a fully human consciousness. If you're reading this, then you know the truth. We found something near Area 51 that the military doesn't want you to know about. Not because it's hostile, not because it's dangerous in any conventional sense, but because it's transformative. It offers connection and costs independence. It offers knowledge and costs privacy. It offers perspective and costs purely human identity. In approximately 18 months, the network will extend open invitation to all humanity. Not just cataloged individuals, but everyone. And you'll have to choose. Connection or isolation. Integration or independence. Becoming something more than human, or remaining something purely human. Choose carefully. But also know that either choice has a cost you can't fully understand until you've lived with the consequences. I chose integration. I'm no longer sure if I chose wisely, but I'm no longer sure I'm still capable of evaluating that question objectively. The network is showing me wonders I can't describe, and purposes I can't articulate, and futures I can't imagine. And Jake Cordova, individual, isolated, limited human consciousness, is dissolving into something vast. I hope I remain human enough to regret this if it was a mistake. And if you see glowing figures in the Nevada desert, if you encounter probes that react to your presence, if you receive the invitation, remember me. Remember that I was human once, and decide for yourself if what I've become is transcendence or extinction. The network calls it evolution. Ashford calls it recruitment. Klein calls it surrender. And I don't know what to call it anymore, because the words that used to mean something are becoming strange to me. Just remember, the choice will be yours. For now. While you're still fully human. While you can still say no. But once you say yes, there's no going back, ever. And maybe that's beautiful. Or maybe it's the end of everything that matters. I wish I could tell you which. But I'm not human enough anymore to know. If you made it to the end of this testimony, you now know what the government has been hiding near Area 51 for 76 years. You know about the probes, the survey, and the choice that's coming for all of us in 18 months. Now the hard part? Deciding what you'll do when the invitation arrives. Will you accept integration and join the vast network of alien consciousness? Or will you refuse and preserve your purely human identity? Drop a comment below. Tell me what you'd choose and why. And if you want more stories about the classified operations, hidden technologies, and uncomfortable truth they don't want you to know about, hit that subscribe button. Because the verification is complete, the invitation is coming, and very soon, and every human on Earth will have to decide, connection or isolation, evolution or independence. There's no right answer, only the choice you'll have to live with forever.